Hi, welcome back to this particular episode. If you remember last time, what we did was we created a Prismic site, or repository rather, should I say, and we added some fields to the slice machine and then uploaded that to the Prismic online server. And then what we did, we created a page, we opened the home page, created a slice called Hero, as the Hero one, and we added image heading and description fields to those, as well as the metadata, etc. And in the hero one, what we're going to do this time, if you remember, the picture and everything came up with the basic thing just came up with a picture and things on it. So if I go to npm run dev, and on there, just open that one, so command click, and it brings it up. You've got a picture there. And if you look underneath, if you squish it down, see underneath, you've got the heading and the text, one on the other. So you've got the data coming through, that's coming from Prismic. So, and that's been brought into play with these particular fields, these particular functions we got here. Okay, these are imported from React, Prismic React, and Prismic Next. And you've got content from Prismic Client. Okay, so that's doing the basics, everything we need on the basics part there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to style this up a little bit. Okay, so first I will create here on the fade in page. Okay, I've created the fade in page within the component, or sorry, get me start again, get my teeth in the right way on. I've created a fade in component in the components directory. Okay, and then what we're going to do here first is it's got to be a use client, because this is we want to pass values to this, and we want to use some client. We want some client JavaScript side interaction, and then what we do after that, we start the imports. We want to use GSAP, import CLSX, import scroll trigger, import useRef from React, and then what you've got to do is want to register the plugins here. So I'm registering using GSAP here to register plugin, use GSAP and scroll trigger. Those ones there the ones we actually brought in from here. Okay. All right. So I just do that. I put a semicolon after CLSX. Sorry. That doesn't need one there. Then so what I do now is this is TypeScript. So what we're going to do is we're going to put if I spell it right. Props. Okay. Fade in props. We're creating a type fade in props. I'm going to pass it some values. We want to pass it basically the children, which will be a React node value. Okay, which basically is anything HTML comes across, and anything we pass to it. Could be any copy on the page. Could be a div, could be a heading, could be any HTML basically. Pass this across to this one, and it'll actually act on that. Okay, this fade props thing the fade props function we're creating in a minute will actually surround whatever children we put into it, or HTML put into it, and that's what comes in here. Okay, then we want to create some vars. Now I'm making the vars I've got a question mark after that, means it's optional. You don't have to pass any vars to it. So and then we're using the GSAP tween vars to actually make them work. And then we can create a start string. So wherever on the page you want the interaction to start. So for example, if you wanted to start way down here, about 20 centimeters or 100 centimeters below this, and by the time you actually scroll into it, it's actually started on the screen, so it won't start appearing. It'll stay down here and won't start interacting. So you don't want to start, for example, a fade in about halfway down the page, and when you come up to the top, the animation's not there. So that's what this actually does here. Then we do the class name. Again, this is optional. And what that is, those are classes we're going to pass across from the parent um, parent slice. Okay. Then we'll come out of that. So we do create the function now, defading, wonderful. And then in here, what we're going to do is we're going to create children start equals top 80%. I can find percentage sign, and then bars, we give it empty object, class name is just an empty string. So you can see here we've created an export const fade in. This is what's actually going to be picked up from the parent, and it's expecting to have a children to come in, start value to come in. Like we want 80% from the top, we want the actual to come in to start. So the GSAP functionality won't start until it's 80% up from the bottom. Okay. And I'm just going to plug my thing in. It's running out of power. Sorry, just running out of power. I don't want to start again. I've done 3 times already. Okay, plugged in now. Right. Okay, so the class is just a string, and we will use a CLSX to concatenate this to whatever styling we've put in here. Okay. So if I go, I'll just finish this off. I put a colon after that, and then I've got fade in props, which is here. We're going to use that. We're going to actually call it here. So this verifies all these bits and pieces. These are all implicitly added, or expected. So that's what this one does. Okay. Then after that, we create the arrow function. These are screaming at us now because we haven't actually used them. So if I create a function here, const create ref, and then give that equals use ref, which is the React use ref we imported there, and then give it HTML div element. Okay, and then I'll give that a value of null to start with, so it doesn't expect anything to start with, but so whatever we pass to it, it can have. Then we create a use GSAP, use the use GSAP function, okay, which we imported again, and in here we're going to create an arrow function within it, and in the arrow function we can create a const okay, for match media. That's the GSAP function to match, well, basically match media, and using that match media one, we can do add. This is why it makes GSAP so much a lot easier. You don't have to write all this code ourselves. All the functionality behind the scenes here is done by GSAP. So add, and then in here we just create a prefers reduced motion. Now this is something which they put into the browser so that if somebody has got problems with eyesight, or they might have something that they don't like to look at, they don't like looking at animations and fade in effects and all that sort of special effects. They just want to get basic, simple, open the page and there it is type websites. They've got the option to opt into on this. So what we do here is you create a function, another arrow function within that. So we got that. So not getting wrong, put teeth in the right way around. add. So it prefers reduce motion, no preference. This means they haven't actually chosen to stop this, and then which means the arrow function we're going to do now will allow them to use whatever we're going to do here. So in this instance, GSAP2 contain a ref current. So what the current reference is set up as. So for example, you've got a 0% opacity. We can actually do. We can change that so it goes to opacity 1. So whatever the opacity is, it changes to 1. So that's full opacity, 100%. And the duration means 5 seconds. Ease here as another GSAP functionality, group of functions, and power out 3. Okay. If you go to the GSAP site, it tells you exactly what these do, and it gives you nice little diagrams of things going up like that, or up like that, or straight line up like that. So that's what these sort of things mean. Okay, then we do Y, which is the position up the page, and we do that 0, so that's where we want the top to be. So now what this does is it animates it from whatever the setup classes are. So if we set it up down here, it will actually pop up like that. The opacity is 1, so if we do it at 0, it'll go from 0 to 100%, and it leaves up on the type of animations. So it'll either go very fast, straight up like that, across like that, gently up, or whatever. But depending on the power out, the power 3 out in, or both. Okay, it can actually go like that if you want it to. Go to the GSEP site, and it's got a demonstration there, shows you all about those ones. Okay, so then we just pass it the rest of the vars, or any other preferences, any other command you want to pass it from the parent. So that's spread that. The three dots means spread any other objects. Okay, then we just close that one. Scroll trigger. Now this one here basically tells you where you want this trigger to aim for, and we want it to contain a ref, which we'll come to later, and current. And then we're doing the start, and then down here, let's close all these off, and then we create another function, and this is where if you've got your preferred motion is reduce, okay, this means they don't want to have all the fancy tricks on the page. What you'll do here is you'll just create an arrow function, the same as the top. This time you do gsap2 and container ref, obviously current, and then in here you do duration 0.05, so it's a fraction of a second, and then opacity 1 straight away, so you go straight to that. So whatever the opacity was, it just overrides it, and that is new style. And then ease none, so it doesn't do any fancy tricks, and go straight to 0, so go straight to the top. So you've got no animation. Basically that wipes all the animation out. At the moment, this doesn't do anything at all other than just write it on the screen. Just what we've done here. So unless you actually open this code up, you won't see anything at all. So what we're going to do now is I'll just add a stagger amount and then come down here, put scope, contain the ref. So now the scope basically adds all this to whatever we're going to put put in the container ref. So and now to do that, we're going to do return. And within return, we create a div and add the children. So this basically is the HTML data passed from the page that we want to animate. Okay, and in the div we put the ref and container ref. Okay, so now this is the target that all these other things are going to be aiming for. Okay, and then here I'll bring that down and I'll put in here class name, and we do open curly brackets instead of quotes, CLSX, open parentheses, close parentheses, and inside there we got some quotes, and we can give the basic styles. So it starts off opacity 0, and then it goes to opacity 1, yeah, whichever we do whichever opacity we change up here, and then we can just pass in any other classes we want. I forgot to import GSAP at the top, so that's that one done. So now I've saved that. That won't have done anything at the moment because I haven't used it yet, but as you can see, that's basically, at the end of the day, that is basically aiming for this container ref. We've given it a starting opacity of 0 with all the classes. We're going to pass all the classes to it manually, and that's done that. Now, in order to do that, go back to the index page, and we'll bring some space around the image. Okay, and then that mark came up because the image needed children. That's why that came up, and we've got the children there now of the Prismic image. Okay, in the fade in, we want to put the vars in the variation, and we're passing it as an object, so it needs to have a double curly bracket. So curly bracket, and then within the curly brackets, you want more curly brackets. And we did the opacity of 0.5, so half, so 50% of the screen. So that overrides the other one. And scale 1. Okay, I'll do it the other way around actually. Scale 1. Okay, so just to start off on that. Then we can add some classes. We do the motion safe scale is 125. position absolute, inset naught, 0 rather. So what this means is the absolute, obviously is a position, you must know all that from all the other bits, all the other CSS you've done in the past. Absolute there is the same, it's just rather than writing position absolute, just write absolute. The inset 0 is basically, what that means is when you do absolute and you want to position it on the page, you normally do like top equals 0, left equals 0, right equals 0, bottom equals 0. Well, inset 0 does exactly the same as all that without having to worry about top, left, right, and all that sort of, saves all that writing. Okay. Now we'll put some classes in here. I'll put relative one there so that we can so it actually reacts to the absolute. Okay, and then we do a min height with screen, overflow hidden, background neutral 950. Okay, and here I forgot to add the opacity 0, so I'll put that there. So this is going to start as opacity 0, and it's going to be massive. It's going to overflow the actual div as well. Okay, so I'll do that, and then so that's fine there. And what I'll do as well is I'll just change this to bounded. Can't spell bounded. Oh, come on, bounded, like that. And then we're going to import it from there, and that'll pop it in there for us at the top. Don't have to worry about it, and it's done at the bottom as well. One little tip: if you start writing and then import it halfway through, it'll only do half at the bottom. Okay, and then save that. If we go back to the page, you can see that this now is coming in 100% to 1, and it fades in. So it starts off nothing, goes like that. Yeah. And that power out 3 is where it makes it go at that particular, like, so it starts off like that and then slows down to get towards the end. Yeah, like that, slows down towards the end. So that's how it fades in. Okay, so that's all we want for this video, and next we will handle the text. Okay, the text is underneath it at the moment because we're using position absolute, so it's underneath here somewhere. Okay, and we'll just leave it like that for this one, as I say, and we'll come back to the other bit in a second. I'll just switch off.